Hi everyone, and Happy New Year! I just wanted to make a quick video about a CSS trick that's helped me along the way in my CSS and front-end career, and I'm going to demonstrate it with this page here. So, as you can see here, you've got a header, you've got some main content, you've got a sidebar, and a footer, and this is all written using flexbox. So essentially, you don't really need to know the height of the content here. You can just let it flow using flexbox, and also the same goes for the sidebar. And at the minute, everything's great. Everything on the page fits the height of the window. But what if we were to add some more content to the sidebar? Well, let's try and duplicate this a few times. I can demonstrate that. Let's see here, we now have multiple cards, and you can see straight away that the sidebar doesn't scroll, which is annoying. We want it to scroll independent of the main content. So naturally what we would think about doing is going, add a class to the sidebar, which already exists there. Add an overflow auto so that it shows a sidebar if there's actually a need for one, if the content is outsized or oversized. But as you can see, that hasn't worked straight away. So next gut reaction would be to add a height 100%. And as you can see, that hasn't worked either. And it's because it's a flexbox element. The contents stretch to the height of the page based on the flexbox rules. So as you can see here, we've defined flex1 in the main tag, which is the parent tag of the sidebar and the main content. This causes an issue because essentially flexbox elements aren't able to calculate what's called an intrinsic height. And an intrinsic height is like an absolute height in some kind of a unit. So it could be pixels, it could be inches, if you like to use inches in web pages. It could even be viewport height. So say if we change this height to 100 VH, which means 100% of the usable area of the viewable area of the browser window, minus the address bar and that kind of stuff. You can see now that the scrolls start to work. But if we go at the bottom of it, you can see that we can't actually get to the bottom of it, and also the footer that was there is no longer visible. Essentially what we've done is we said we want to make this div the height of the entire page, but we haven't taken into account the footer or the header. So improving on this a little bit, we could do a calculation. So if you just do calc minus the height of this element up here, which is 60 pixels. And it gets a little bit better. We can see a little bit more of the content. In fact, we can see all the content, but we can't see the footer. So we need to just add just a little bit more. The footer is 64 pixels in height, so we need to just add that to our calculation. And we have a sidebar where we can see all of the sidebar and all the other elements of the page that aren't scrollable. Brilliant. The only problem is, when we come along and do some more work on this site, we decide to go, okay, well, the header bar isn't quite as tall as we'd like it to be. Now immediately we've added more height and padding to the header. It is now just broken the sidebar, or rather it's broken the footer below, because the sidebar and the footer are fighting it out to get enough height, or to try and fill up the height of the page. So how do we solve this? Well, this is where where my CSS trick comes in. And what we do is we get rid of this height calculation, and we get rid of this overflow auto. We add a surrounding wrapper div around the sidebar content. So we take all of this, add a div, put everything inside of that div, and we'll call the div sidebar wrapper. As you can see, it's still broken. So we define our sidebar wrapper class. And we add overflow auto, and height 100%. Still broken. But now, when we use the CSS trick that I've learned along the way, which I call the relative absolute CSS trick, it will fix the issue. So what you do is on the outer div, which is our sidebar, you add position relative, and on the inner div you add position absolute. And as you can see, now that we've done that, you have a fully scrollable sidebar which has enough space, enough breathing space, and doesn't interrupt the footer or any of the other content. So just a brief explanation and summary. Using position relative on the outer div gives the inner div, which is flexboxed, an intrinsic height. And because it has an intrinsic height, you can use percentages. And because you can use the intrinsic height and the percentages, it allows you to calculate the overflow. And you can use overflow auto, and overflow auto will accommodate the full contents, the full vertical contents of the div, but will kind of squash it into the space that the outer div allows it to have. So there's one of my CSS tricks. When you can't get something to scroll and you're using flexbox, just use the position relative, position absolute wrapper trick. And that's all there is. Thanks very much.